Welcome to Pop Crime TV's The Outlier podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Conlin, and I am taking you back to Utah today for some new developments, and I do apologize for not doing video. I'm traveling right now, so it's just easier for me to get an episode out via audio. I think after today's episode, you're going to be wondering who is really running the show in Utah behind closed doors. We've got an update on the David Lee Hamblin case in American Fork, and a quick check-in on the San Pete County case, and a very disturbing and fresh scandal involving a fire chief and a judge in Brigham City, Utah. So buckle up, this is going to be a wild ride. Let's start with the David Lee Hamblin American Fork case, and I will give you just a quick recap here. David Lee Hamblin is a former therapist accused of multiple counts of child sex abuse in 2 counties, and the American Fork case, that was supposed to be this pivotal case in his legal battle and justice for alleged victims like ES, and instead, these cases have just become a train wreck of prosecutorial failure. On March 20th, 2025, Judge Roger Griffin dismissed the Utah County American Fork case against Hamblin with prejudice, meaning prosecutors cannot refile those charges ever again. And as a recap here, it wasn't because the evidence was weak, it was because of what we believe, or I am speculating here, there was some kind of deliberate misconduct either by the prosecutors or the Utah County Sheriff's Office. It's still unclear. If you recall, investigators Elise Hines and Jason Randall possibly withheld a key piece of evidence, a September 29th, 2022 interview with survivor and accuser ES, despite court orders to turn it over. So this interview was apparently hidden for nearly 2 years. And in that interview, ES described horrific ritual abuse after her baptism. She was taken to a room in an LDS church, surrounded by people in black cloaks, subjected to a satanic ritual, and forced to consume something very, very disturbing from a body part of multiple participants. And this was withheld, apparently. And the original charges filed the day before, on September 28th, 2022, they only focused on non-ritualistic abuse. So it kind of seems to me like someone behind closed doors wanted to keep the ritual angle quiet, maybe because they knew it would be harder to get a conviction or even go to trial if they went the ritualistic abuse angle. That's just a speculation. It seems like politically, no one in Utah can agree that ritualistic abuse is real. So Hamblin's defense attorneys asked for this interview, and when they finally got it, they argued that the case was irreparably tainted. Special prosecutor Nathan Evershed had no choice but to move for dismissal due to due process violations. And Nathan Evershed officially filed to recuse himself from the case as well. Judge Roger Griffin didn't mince words in his most recent filing, calling this, quote, unusual for the quantity and quality of prosecutorial missteps, end quote. And just quickly, in San Pete County, Hamblin does still face those charges, and a status hearing is set for April 2nd, and we will be watching that closely. So hopefully that case doesn't fall apart as well. But back to Judge Roger Griffin filing a 34-page motion citing why the case would be dismissed with prejudice, again, meaning that it can never be reopened. And here is the gist of what it said. The court grants the state's motion to dismiss charges against David Lee Hamblin, a former therapist accused of multiple counts of child sex abuse, with prejudice. The ruling stems from a cascade of prosecutorial missteps and discovery violations spanning over 2 years, culminating in the state's own request for dismissal on February 19th, 2025, due to evidentiary weaknesses and discovery issues. The court's decision hinges on both the legal standard under Utah Rule of Criminal Procedure 25 and a finding of unconstitutional delays and Brady violations that prejudiced Hamblin's defense. The timeline begins with key events in 2022. On August 16th, the Utah County Attorney's Office was disqualified from prosecuting Hamblin due to conflicts, a ruling tied to a separate case, State v. Hamblin, case number 121101477. On September 28th, 2022, charges were filed against Hamblin by a conflict prosecutor focusing narrowly on non-ritualistic child abuse allegations. However, a critical supplemental police report from an interview with the alleged victim on September 29th, detailing ritualistic satanic abuse, was withheld by investigators Elise Hines and Jason Randall until February 6th, 2025, despite repeated court orders for disclosure. Hamblin's defense uncovered this report's existence by cross-referencing discovery discrepancies, revealing that it contained exculpatory material that undermined the state's theory and supported Hamblin's claim of a broader context involving satanic ritual abuse. This late disclosure, among others, triggered the dismissal motion. Over the case's 29-month duration, Hamblin filed multiple motions to compel discovery, citing Brady material, exculpatory evidence the state is constitutionally obligated to provide, while the state resisted, citing privilege, irrelevance, or ongoing investigations. The court's legal analysis rests on Utah's Rule of Criminal Procedure 25, which governs dismissals. The state argued for a dismissal without prejudice, suggesting statute of limitation issues might moot refiling, but Hamblin insisted on a mandatory dismissal with prejudice due to, quote, unreasonable or unconstitutional delay under Rule 25b1. Judge Griffin applied the Barker v. Wingo four-factor test to assess speedy trial violations, the 29-month delay since filing, the delays primarily caused by the state's failure to produce discovery, and Hamblin's consistent assertion of his rights via discovery motions and prejudice from prolonged litigation and late evidence disclosure, which could have led to an earlier dismissal. The court found that these factors overwhelmingly favored Hamblin, noting the state's investigators even admitted to strategically delaying discovery to gain a tactical advantage before a preliminary hearing. Additionally, the withheld report violated Brady v. Maryland by suppressing material exculpatory evidence, further justifying dismissal with prejudice. The final conflict prosecutor, Nathan Evershed, appointed in May 2024, concluded the case lacked a reasonable likelihood of conviction, a view shaped by consultation with the AG and the victim, and yet the court emphasized the discovery abuses as equally decisive, ensuring Hamblin's discharge and barring future prosecution on these charges, end quote. And I get it. I understand why they ruled in favor of David Lee Hamblin based on all of this. I am heartbroken over it, and my heart goes out to all of the survivors and all of the victims of SA. But what is going on here? It really does seem like the interview and the satanic ritual abuse that ES was speaking about was deliberately withheld because they knew it wouldn't be easy to prosecute, especially since Utah lawmakers killed a bill to criminalize ritualistic abuse. This is just, again, so heartbreaking and so frustrating. But let's move on now, because we're going to head north to Brigham City, Utah, for a story that is incredibly disturbing. Now imagine this. The fire chief of Tremonton, Utah, Ned Brady Hansen, 54, was arrested for allegedly sharing child pornography. And the Brigham City police raided his home with a search warrant, and then he was taken into custody for this, which is horrible, horrible. But it does seem to get worse. Hansen was then released on bail by a judge named Kevin Robert Christensen, who is 64 of the Box Elder County Justice Court. And then that same judge, Judge Christensen, gets nabbed by the FBI's Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force. Why? Because investigators found explicit child-related chats between Hansen and Christensen, talks of them SAing kids, and some very weird hints that they were in a sexual relationship themselves. Local outlet KUTV and court docs say these two were using the app Kik to scheme about exploiting kids, including ones related to them, and even met up in person for sexual acts. Charging docs reveal that law enforcement begged to hold Hansen without bail due to the risk he posed, but Christensen initially let him out anyway and never disclosed their alleged connection. I mean, that is corruption staring you right in the face. And I'm not even going to say allegedly. But let's back up here for a minute. Arrest docs showed the investigation into Hansen began in November of 2024 when the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a tip that an online account was sharing child sex abuse material involving a girl between the ages of 10 and 12 years old. An email address associated with the account connected officials to Hansen, and a warrant served to Google and Comcast later turned up his phone number and his IP address. His date of birth also coincided with the last digits of his account name for the platform where he allegedly shared this child pornography. When the search was performed at his home, he did admit to everything. He admitted to possessing the videos and everything that was saved on his phone. And then later, investigators identified Judge Christensen as one of Hansen's online chat partners. And these filings are really disturbing. They show some of the things that Christensen said to underage girls, some of the things they texted to each other about kids, and oh my gosh, it's so gross. It makes your stomach turn, and it also just infuriates you. But here are the official charges for each man. Fire Chief Ned Brady Hansen was charged with 8 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, and Judge Kevin Christensen was charged with dealing in materials harmful to a minor, 2 counts of that, 2 counts of enticing a minor with sexual activity, and 2 counts of attempted sexual exploitation of a minor. And people online are losing it over this, as they should. I mean, this case, the case of the judge and the fire chief, really has caused people to look at Utah. I mean, check out Judge Christensen's bio on the Utah court sites. He was appointed in 1996, serving multiple cities, a Gonzaga law grad, and get this, he, quote, often speaks to youth groups about the court system. Ugh, that is so chilling knowing what we know now. And Ned Brady Hansen has obviously been fired as the fire chief. And yes, he was initially released on bail by Judge Christensen, but he is also being held now without bail. Both men appeared in court a few days ago, and they were both shackled, hands and feet, which was satisfying. But how many cases of Kevin Christensen's should be reopened at this point? I mean, someone needs to do a deep dive here and see which pedophiles he allegedly let off with a slap on the wrist. And also, what is the thread here? Utah has a huge, huge problem. From Hamblin's case collapsing due to hidden evidence to a fire chief and a judge allegedly in cahoots over child porn, it is very clear that something is rotting at the local and state level. A user named Casey on X put it very bluntly. She said, quote, We have senators pushing to cut time for sex offenders on the registry, judges arrested for child sex crimes, and the same senator chairs the Judicial Confirmation Committee. Wake up, Utah. End quote. And this isn't just about a few bad actors, in my opinion. It's about systems failing when we don't pay attention. School boards, judges, sheriffs. I mean, these local roles matter more than ever. Again, how many cases of Judge Kevin Christensen's need to be reopened? Ignoring them is how we end up here. So I'm asking you, what do we do about this? I have been overwhelmed with people emailing me and messaging me with all of this information about what's going on in Utah, and it is so helpful. I plan to cover more of what I am hearing from people in an ethical way, of course, on another episode, but I did want to just get this out to everybody today, as it's been a little over a week since I've put out content on Utah. And don't worry, I am going to keep digging. I want to thank everyone again for their support and for all of their feedback as I cover this incredibly horrific and tough topic out of Utah. I'll be back next week with another episode, so stay safe and stay vigilant. I'm Lauren Conlin.